Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking the deeply profound narrative of romance in the key of nothing. It's this breathtaking story that uses a really bizarre, totally fictional condition to explore some huge real-world concepts, like identity, chronic illness, and what it actually means to show up for someone. Honestly, it's a text that forces us to take a hard look at the sheer amount of effort it takes just to simply exist. Okay, let's just dive right into this remarkable premise with a quote straight from the text, because it absolutely nails the existential dilemma of our two main characters, Devi and Sam. I mean, imagine trying to date or build trust or literally share a life with someone when neither of you can even promise that your consciousness is actually going to stick around for dinner. It creates this foundational instability that completely rewrites all the normal rules of engagement. And really, that brings us to the central question of our explainer today. How in the world do you build a life and a romance when the very foundation of your identity keeps vanishing without warning? Seriously, how do you love someone who periodically just stops existing? Let's unpack exactly how Devi and Sam navigate this seemingly impossible challenge. Starting off with Section 1, the arithmetic of absence. Here is where we really need to look at the literal mechanics of the characters' shared reality. The story kicks off in this dingy church basement support group where Devi and Sam first cross paths. And this is where we get introduced to their condition, which is known simply as dissolving, or sometimes no self. Now, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a total, temporary ego death. Their consciousness vanishes completely, but their physical bodies just remain and run on pure instinct. So we're not just talking about spacing out or dissociating here. The inner watcher completely leaves the room, while the body just keeps on moving. Now, what's really fascinating is the stark contrast between their normal state and this condition. When Devi dissolves, her autopilot can effortlessly copy-edit a super complex cartography manuscript. When Sam checks out, their autopilot can somehow build these stunning walnut chairs. It is incredibly bizarre. The body goes through all the motions with flawless competence, but feels absolutely nothing inside. It's only their true selves that can actually experience fear or joy or anxiety and, most importantly, consciously choose to love. The autopilot survives, sure, but only the self truly lives. That brings us right into Section 2, love on autopilot. So how do Devi and Sam attempt to build a relationship around these completely unpredictable absences? Well, early on in their courtship, Sam hits Devi with this absolute gut punch of a poetic line, later assumes continuity. And that establishes right away that traditional relationship milestones, they just don't work when you suffer from a chronic inability to stay present. You can't promise someone forever when you can't even guarantee this afternoon. They are forced to construct their romance entirely in the immediate present. Because of this, they really have to adapt. And they end up developing this profound intimacy by literally guarding each other's vacant bodies. They call it lighthousing. Basically, when one of them vanishes, the other calls out Lighthouse as a sort of marker and then keeps watch over the empty shell. It requires a radical kind of trust. They have to learn this strange, beautiful philosophy of loving the space where the lover should be, even without the lover actually being present. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the radical acceptance at the very core of their romance. At one point, Devi feels completely groping after dissolving during a super vulnerable moment. But Sam reframes her terrifying absence. They don't treat it as a flaw that needs to be fixed, but just as a rhythm. Like a flashing lighthouse, right? The dark periods don't mean the light is defective. It just means the light is intermittent. But things definitely take a darker turn as we move into Section 3, the gravity of nothing. This is where the beautiful romantic metaphor starts giving way to a really severe psychological crisis. If we track how this escalates, it's pretty harrowing. Devi goes from losing just a few minutes in the shower to forgetting how it actually feels to be Devi for days at a time. She knows all the facts of her life, but that internal self-narrative is just gone. And finally, this culminates in the dangerous pull of nothingness. It becomes this seductive temptation to just stop fighting the gravity, permanently dissolve, and never come back. The real danger here is exactly that, the seduction of absence. Devi actually confesses to her therapist that simply performing personhood is exhausting. Making decisions, maintaining a narrative, feeling anxiety, it's all so heavy. So when she's dissolved, there's just this quiet, total lack of dread. Letting the autopilot take over forever becomes dangerously appealing. And you can really see how the source text uses this as a brilliant, powerful metaphor for severe burnout and oppression. But the stakes get incredibly real at a support group retreat. There, Davy meets Miriam, an older woman who has been managing her condition for 40 years. And Miriam gives Davy a serious warning. Surrendering to the absence is not some peaceful, enlightened escape. Miriam shares this chilling story about a past lover who dissolved permanently. He didn't find peace. He just left behind a hollow, robotic shell of a body that eventually just shut down completely. It is the ultimate void. Which brings us to our final segment, Section 4, the physics of return. That grim reality check makes Davy realize something absolutely crucial. Coming back from the void isn't some medical cure that's just going to magically happen to her. It is a conscious, deliberate, daily choice. Her therapist helps her build these things called tethers to fight the gravity of nothingness. She has to actively anchor her consciousness. That means grounding herself through her physical senses, clinging to small daily rituals like making Sunday pancakes, resuming her poetry, and relying on the tiny obligations of caring for Sam to literally pull her mind back into her body. She has to actively build reasons to return. And Sam has this revelation that beautifully summarizes the entire emotional core of the source text. They say, love doesn't require consistency, just showing up when you can. The story is telling us that you absolutely do not have to be perfect or totally unbroken or even consistently present to be worthy of a profound, life-changing love. You just have to keep choosing to return over and over again. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. What are the tethers that keep you coming back? Seriously, in a world full of distractions, exhaustion, and burnout, what are the small obligations, the daily rituals, and the loves that anchor you to reality? Take a moment today to think about your own lighthouses. Thank you so much for joining me as we unpacked this incredible story.